welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to be very quick, short and sweet, I'm hoping, because I just was thinking this morning, you know, as I came into my beauty room and I'm like, okay, let me just kind of take a look at the palettes and see what I want to play with today, see what kind of look I want to create today. And I was also thinking about some of the new palettes that have been announced that are coming out or have already come out, and still kind of trying to decide whether or not I want to pick these palettes up. Now, Anastasia Beverly Hills announced that they're coming out with the Norvina palette, okay? This palette is a gorgeous. Okay, let's just take a quick look at this palette, you guys. Okay, now you see how beautiful that palette looks. I mean, anybody looking at that palette, if you're a makeup lover or someone who's into purples and nice lilacs and lavenders and, you know, stuff like that, that palette is really going to speak to you. It's gorgeous. But I said to myself, you know what? This is just another palette with pops of purple and neutral shades. Everybody else is doing the warm neutral shades with a pop of blue. Warm neutral shades, you know, they was doing it with a pop of purple. So now it's like, this isn't anything new, but the palette looks gorgeous. So of course it is definitely on my to-do list, to get list, to buy list next week whenever it's launching. I believe it's next week sometime. But I said, you know what, really, KK, you need to just look at your palettes, kind of go through and see, do I need this palette? Do I really need this palette? Because I think I'm reaching a point, you guys, where it's like, I really got to stop buying palettes just to keep my collection complete, you know? So of course I have the Modern Renaissance from ABH. I have the Subculture from ABH. I have the Soft Glam from ABH. I also have the Prism palette from ABH, and all of those palettes are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I haven't used the Subculture for various reasons, but I love my ABH palette collection. And so now, of course, it's like without question, I'm going to get the Norvina palette, but I need help, you guys. I really do. I need you to help me to say no to this palette. I need you to help me to say no to it. Now, to help myself say no to this palette, I decided to pull out all of my palettes that have a purple theme to them or the same kind of color story in them, just to kind of look and see and say, you know what, girl, you don't need that palette. So the first palette I want to take a look at is actually a palette that is very new to my collection. It was a gift to me from the beautiful Keeping It Simple with Bridget. She got me this palette and I love it to death. It is the Violet Voss hashtag palette, okay? This palette is gorgeous. Even, you know, just the packaging alone is pretty. But let's just take a quick look at this palette. This is what the palette looks like on the inside. Okay, so as you can see, it has like the nice sunset type vibe. You know, it has the warm tones with the golds and the oranges, but it also has the very pretty purple and lilac shades in here as well. Now let's just take a quick look at this palette right next to the Norvina. Now, as you can see, these palettes have a very similar color story. This palette has a black in it, also a nice brow bone shade in here to use, but it doesn't have the pinky type shades that it looks like the Norvina palette might have. But everything else, I can pretty much get the same look out of this palette. So now, I assume that the Norvina palette is going to be around $42 like the rest of the ABH palettes. This palette was $45. Now, the Norvina palette, you get, what, 14 shades? Yeah, in the Norvina palette, you get 14 shades. In this palette, you get 20 shades. Now, you do get a few more shades in this Violet Voss hashtag palette than you do in the Norvina palette, but they're still around the same price range. So now let's quickly just take a look at this Bad Habit Supernova palette. Let's just take a quick look at this palette next to the Norvina palette. Now this palette really gives me the same vibes as the Norvina palette. It has like the nice beautiful purple shades in here. It even has this shade here which is purple. It has kind of like that bluish feel to it. It has the nice warmer tones in here. So this palette actually really makes me feel like, okay, I don't need the Norvina palette. Now this Bad Habit Supernova palette runs for about 16 bucks and you get 15 shades in here compared to the 14 shades out of the Norvina palette for about $42. So you're paying twice as much for, you know, the Norvina palette. And this palette, although I haven't used it myself, I have seen some serious reviews that this palette is very bomb. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a much more inexpensive palette that I purchased actually off of Amazon. And this is the Beauty Glaze palette, and this is called I Got You edition. And this one has kind of like the same purple storyline as the other palettes that we're talking about today. Now this palette that I purchased off of Amazon was only $9.88, and you actually get 18 shades in this palette. So this is what this palette looks like. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at this palette next to the Norvina. Now once again, this palette is really making me feel like I don't need the Norvina palette. And the reason why is because I even get this really pretty light lavender lilac shade in here, along with some of these other purple shades, along with the warm tones that are in here as well, with these nice shimmer shadows that I can use, and even what looks like kind of like a chroma crystal shadow in here. So like I said, this is another inexpensive palette. If you have it, I would say, you know, unless you really don't like this formula, it's looking a lot like the Norvina. Okay, next I have my Athena palette from Bad Habit, and look at this gorgeous palette, you guys. It's very pretty. Now this palette I got from shophush.com for $14, and it has 21 shades in this palette. This is what this palette looks like. As you can see, basically the same color story with the pretty purples, oranges, and warm tones, and there's some gorgeous shimmer shadows in here as well. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this palette right next to the Norvina. So as you can see from those side-by-side pictures, this palette actually looks like it has almost all of the shades, same shades that the Norvina has. I think the Norvina has like a deeper plum shade in it, but aside from that, the shades in this palette look very similar to the Norvina. So once again, if you have this Athena palette, you might want to check it out. Kind of pick it up and use it just in case you're thinking about you need that Norvina. Next, let's take a look at one of my larger palettes. Now this is one of my large palettes that I have here from Jcat, and this is the Melrose palette. Now although this palette does not have the exact same color story as the Norvina, it is a purple based palette. And of course this palette has 35 shades in it. And I picked this up from shophush.com for $18. So this palette is still less expensive than the Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. But let's just go ahead and take a quick look at this palette next to the Norvina. So as you can see in this palette, you do get the nice warm shades on this side. You do have the pinky tone shades right here in the center, and then you also have the deep dark purple and plum type shades over here on this side. So I would definitely say that this palette would compete with the same color story as the Norvina. And like I said, this is a 35 pan palette, and this palette was 18 bucks on shophush.com. So next, let's take a look at a palette that I haven't really pulled out in my collection in quite a while. This is the BeBella Pro Maroon Mayhem palette. And this is a gorgeous, gorgeous palette. There are 30 eyeshadows in this palette. And this is one that I actually picked up quite a while ago. This is what the palette looks like. So as you can see, very pretty. Same basic color story with the maroons, purples, lilacs, and pinks. Let's just take a quick look at this palette next to the Norvina. As you can see with this palette, you do get a beautiful purple shade. You don't have a separate lilac shade in here, but you do get some shades that pull along the pink color storyline, and you do get the nice warm shades in here, as well as some of the browns and some really nice gold shimmer tones in here also. So this palette, although it's not an exact dupe for the Norvina, you probably can create some of the same type of looks with this palette. And like I said, this palette is 30 shades, and this palette was actually $28. So even still cheaper than the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, but it's not a bad comparison palette to it. Next, let's talk about this Morphe palette. So this is the Morphe 35P, and this is another purple toned palette. Now, this palette, of course, has 35 shades, hence the name 35P from Morphe. Let's go ahead and take a quick look of this palette compared to the Norvina. Okay, so in this palette, as you can see, you do get some really, really pretty gorgeous purple shades in this palette. You also get the lighter purple shades over here, like the nice lilac purple shade up here, nice warm purples and a deep dark purple. And once again, you get your nice warm earth tone shadows in here, as well as a couple of purple toned shimmer shades. You do get some nice transition shades in here, and you get your brow bone highlight as well as your black shadows. So I think this one, compared to the Norvina, you don't get some of the nice light shimmer shadows that they are showing in the picture. Let me just take a quick look. Yeah, it looks like there's a nice gold shimmer shadow in there. And let's see here. Yeah, these are all mattes. So this palette would differ because there are no nice gold shimmer shadows in here, and there are no pinks in this palette. So it's slightly different, but once again, this purple themed palette from Morphe has 35 shades and it runs for $23. So it's not a bad purple themed palette. So I have one more purple themed palette that I want to show you guys as you help me to decide whether or not to buy this Norvina palette. This palette, it's a generic purple palette that I actually purchased off of Aliexpress. As you can see, I put my own little ghetto label on here that says purple palette, so I'll know what's in here. Even though on the back they do have the little 35P purple 35P sticker on here to let me know what it is, but this just helps me find it quickly. But I purchased this palette from AliExpress quite a while ago, and it was only $11, okay? So let's just take a quick look at this palette. This is what this palette looks like, my AliExpress purple toned palette, okay? This palette is gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. Let's take a quick look at this palette next to the Norvina. Now honestly, I must say, I don't think that there is an eyeshadow look that I could create with the Norvina that I couldn't create with this palette. This palette is very, very versatile with a lot of pinks, a lot of nice purples in here. They have some deeper purples as well as the pretty light lavender lilac shade. You also have your nice light brow bone highlights, some warm transition shades, also with orangey tones, as well as a black if you want to smoke something out. And I don't believe in the Norvina that there's a black. There's no black in that palette. Once again, the only thing missing from this palette is the nice shimmer shadows that it looks like are in the Norvina palette. It looks like there's a gold shimmer shadow. But other than that, this one definitely has the gorgeous lilac and light purple type of shimmer shadow for you to use in a look. So like I said, I got this palette from Aliexpress, the 35p, and this was $11. So compared to about $42 for the ABH Norvina, I would say that this would be a nice little substitution. It's like a quarter of the price. But anywho, you guys, so honestly, it's like, how many times am I gonna buy the same palette? How many times am I going to buy the same palette? I have to ask myself that, because just right here, this is what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 palettes with the same color story, the same color scheme. I don't need another purple lavender-esque palette. Now, do I want to get that palette for my collection and because of the fact that it's beautiful? Absolutely. So when I ask myself, how many times am I gonna buy the same palette? I guess one more time, because I'm sure enough getting that Norvina palette. So anywho, you guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for taking a moment to kind of check out all these different purple themed palettes with me. And hopefully you guys have a little bit more willpower and self-control than I do if you already have these palettes. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.